Some Hollywood legends still have stars on the Walk of Fame. Their movies are restored, celebrated, and watched by new generations. But the places where many of them were finally laid to rest tell a very different story. Some graves went unmarked for decades. Others were hidden from public memory, overshadowed by scandal, or quietly forgotten as Hollywood moved on. Tonight, we'll revisit 15 famous stars whose final resting places reveal just how fragile fame can be and why their stories deserve to be remembered once again. Number 1. Dorothy Dandridge. Behind one quiet crypt at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale rests a woman who forever changed Oscar history. Dorothy Dandridge became the first black woman ever nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actress. Yet today, her final resting place receives only a fraction of the attention given to many Hollywood legends who never broke barriers the way she did. Born into a performing family, Dandridge began entertaining audiences as a child before rising to fame through music and film. Her career reached its peak in 1954 when her unforgettable performance in Carmen Jones earned her an Oscar nomination, making history and turning her into one of Hollywood's brightest stars. For a moment, it seemed the industry was finally ready to embrace a new era. Instead, that breakthrough became the high point of her career. Hollywood still offered very few leading roles to black actresses, and the opportunities she hoped would follow never truly arrived. Financial problems, personal struggles, and the responsibility of caring for her disabled daughter gradually overshadowed the glamour that audiences remembered. Dorothy Dandridge died on September 8, 1965, at just 42 years old. Her death was officially ruled an accidental overdose, bringing a heartbreaking end to a career filled with both extraordinary achievement and painful disappointment. Today, she rests inside the Freedom Mausoleum at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. Visitors can easily walk past without realizing they are standing near one of Hollywood's greatest pioneers. The woman who broke one of the Academy Award's most significant racial barriers now lies in remarkable quietness, a reminder that history doesn't always remember its trailblazers as loudly as it should. Number 2. Hattie McDaniel. Hattie McDaniel made history long before Hollywood was ready to celebrate it. In 1940, she became the first African American to win an Academy Award for her performance in Gone with the Wind. Yet despite that extraordinary achievement, her final wish was denied, and even today, her resting place tells a story that many movie fans have never heard. By the late 1930s, McDaniel had become one of Hollywood's most recognizable actresses. Although she often faced limited and stereotypical roles, her talent, warmth, and unforgettable screen presence made her impossible to ignore. Winning an Oscar should have opened countless doors, but racial discrimination continued to restrict the opportunities available to her throughout the rest of her career. When she died of breast cancer on October 26, 1952, at the age of 57, McDaniel asked to be buried at Hollywood Memorial Park, now known as Hollywood Forever Cemetery. The request was refused because the cemetery still enforced a policy that barred black burials. Instead, she was laid to rest at Angeles Rosedale Cemetery in Los Angeles. Nearly half a century later, Hollywood Forever acknowledged that injustice by installing a memorial in her honor. But it is only a cenotaph. Hattie McDaniel's remains were never moved, and she still rests at Angeles Rosedale, exactly where she was buried in 1952. That contrast makes her story especially powerful. The woman who broke one of the Academy Award's greatest racial barriers could not even be buried in the Hollywood cemetery she chose. Today, many visitors admire the memorial created decades later, unaware that her true resting place lies elsewhere. It remains one of the clearest reminders that Hollywood's greatest pioneers were not always honored in life, or even in death. Number 3. Louise Brooks. Millions of people recognize Louise Brooks' iconic bob haircut, even if they don't recognize her name. Her image remains one of the most enduring symbols of silent cinema, yet the woman behind it slowly faded from Hollywood's memory long before her life came to an end. Brooks became a rising star during the late 1920s, appearing in several successful films before delivering her most celebrated performance in Pandora's Box. Her beauty, confidence, and modern screen presence made her unlike almost any actress of her time. Many believed she was destined to become one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Instead, a series of career decisions changed everything. After disagreements with Paramount Pictures, Brooks left Hollywood to work in Europe. While her films later became classics, Hollywood quickly moved on. As the industry embraced talking pictures, she found few opportunities and eventually left acting. For years she lived quietly, far removed from the fame she had once enjoyed. Ironically, her reputation grew again decades later. Film historians and critics rediscovered her work, praising her as one of silent cinema's greatest actresses. By then, however, she had already spent much of her life outside the spotlight that once seemed permanent. Louise Brooks died on August 8, 1985, at the age of 78. She was laid to rest at Holy Sepulchre Cemetery in Rochester, New York, far from the Hollywood studios where her legend began. Today, her face still appears in books, documentaries, and film history collections around the world. Yet many people who instantly recognize her famous hairstyle have never heard her name, and even fewer know where she rests. In many ways, Louise Brooks became a rare Hollywood paradox. Her image remained unforgettable, while the woman herself gradually slipped from public memory. Number 4. Ramon Novarro. Before Charlton Heston became Ben-Hur, that legendary role belonged to Ramon Novarro. During the silent film era, he was one of Hollywood's biggest leading men, admired for his charm, talent, and international appeal. Yet today, many people remember the shocking way he died far more than the remarkable career he built. Novarro rose to fame in the 1920s with films such as Scaramouche and the original Ben-Hur, A Tale of the Christ. At the height of his career, he was considered one of MGM's greatest stars and one of the most recognizable actors in the world. But as Hollywood changed and new generations of leading men emerged, the major roles became less frequent and his fame gradually faded. His life came to a tragic end on October 30th, 1968, when he was murdered inside his Los Angeles home at the age of 69. The crime shocked Hollywood and dominated newspaper headlines, overshadowing the achievements that had once made him a global star. Over time, the story of his death became better known than the films that defined his career. Ramon Novarro was laid to rest at Calvary Cemetery in East Los Angeles, California. Unlike the graves of some of Hollywood's most visited legends, his resting place remains relatively quiet and is rarely included among the cemetery's best-known celebrity sites. That may be the greatest irony of all. Millions once watched him ride across the screen as one of cinema's earliest epic heroes. Today, many people recognize his name only because of the tragedy that ended his life, while the extraordinary career that came before it has slowly faded from public memory. Number 5. John Gilbert. At the height of the silent film era, John Gilbert was one of Hollywood's biggest heartthrobs. His films filled theaters, his romance with Greta Garbo fascinated the public, and MGM promoted him as one of its greatest stars. But within just a few years, the man who once seemed untouchable had become one of Hollywood's most famous cautionary tales. For decades, many believed Gilbert's career collapsed because audiences rejected his voice when talking pictures arrived. It's a dramatic story, but not an entirely accurate one. While the transition to sound certainly changed Hollywood, historians now agree that studio politics, conflicts with MGM executives, and changing public tastes all played important roles in his decline. As leading roles became harder to find, Gilbert struggled to regain the success he had once enjoyed. His health also deteriorated, worsened by heavy drinking and the stress of a fading career. On January 9, 1936, he died of a heart attack at just 38 years old, ending the life of a man who had once stood among the industry's brightest stars. John Gilbert was laid to rest inside the Great Mausoleum at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. While thousands of visitors come to the cemetery each year, many never realize that one of silent Hollywood's greatest leading men rests behind its marble walls. His story remains one of Hollywood's most enduring ironies. A superstar once blamed for having the wrong voice is now remembered less for the unforgettable performances that made him famous than for a myth that history has largely proven incomplete. Number 6. Mabel Normand. Before Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton became household names, Mabel Normand was already one of silent Hollywood's brightest stars. She was not only a gifted actress but also an accomplished comedian, writer and director who helped shape early film comedy. Yet today, her remarkable career is often overshadowed by scandals she was never convicted of being involved in. During the 1910s and early 1920s, Normand starred in dozens of successful films and worked alongside some of the biggest pioneers of silent cinema. Audiences adored her energy and charm, making her one of Hollywood's highest-paid actresses. But her reputation began to suffer after she was linked, though never charged, to two highly publicized criminal cases, including the unsolved murder of director William Desmond Taylor. The constant media attention damaged her public image, even as evidence failed to prove any wrongdoing. At the same time, tuberculosis gradually weakened her health, forcing her to step away from the screen. She died on February 23, 1930, at just 36 years old. Her funeral drew many of Hollywood's biggest names, a reminder of the respect she still commanded within the industry despite the headlines that had followed her. Mabel Normand was laid to rest at Calvary Cemetery in East Los Angeles, California. While film historians continue to recognize her importance, her grave receives far less public attention than those of many silent-era stars whose contributions were no greater than hers. Perhaps that is her greatest irony. One of the women who helped build Hollywood's golden foundation is remembered by many people not for her groundbreaking career, but for controversies that were never truly hers. Meanwhile, the actress who once made millions laugh now rests quietly, far from the spotlight she helped create. Number 7. Florence Lawrence. Long before Hollywood created its first generation of movie stars, Florence Lawrence became one. She was often called the first movie star, helping transform actors from anonymous faces into celebrities whose names audiences eagerly followed. Yet after her death, the woman who helped invent movie stardom lay in an unmarked grave for more than 50 years. During the early 1900s, Lawrence appeared in hundreds of silent films and became one of the first performers promoted by name. Fans flocked to theaters to see her, proving that audiences would return not just for a story, but for a favorite actor. That simple idea would eventually become the foundation of Hollywood's entire star system. But as the film industry rapidly evolved, her career slowed. Injuries from a studio fire and a serious car accident affected her health, while younger stars captured the public's attention. By the 1930s, the woman who had once been one of cinema's biggest attractions was largely forgotten by the industry she helped build. Florence Lawrence died on December 28, 1938, at the age of 52. She was buried at Hollywood Cemetery, now known as Hollywood Forever Cemetery. Astonishingly, her grave remained without a proper marker for more than 5 decades. It wasn't until 1991 that a memorial was finally placed above her resting place, bearing the words, "The First Movie Star." That simple inscription carries a powerful irony. The woman who taught Hollywood the value of a famous name spent over 50 years with no name marking her own grave. Today, visitors can finally find her resting place, but it also stands as a quiet reminder of how easily even the pioneers of Hollywood can fade from memory. Number 8. Peg Entwistle. Peg Entwistle's career lasted only a short time, but her death became one of Hollywood's most enduring legends. Nearly a century later, millions recognize the story of the actress who jumped from the Hollywood sign, while far fewer know the talented young performer she was before that tragic night. Born in Wales and raised in the United States, Entwistle earned praise on Broadway before making the difficult transition to Hollywood. She finally landed a film role in 13 Women in 1932, believing it would be the beginning of a promising screen career. Instead, much of her performance was cut from the final release, and future opportunities quickly disappeared during the height of the Great Depression. On September 16, 1932, at just 24 years old, Peg Entwistle died after jumping from the H of the Hollywood sign, then known as the Hollywood Land sign. The tragedy immediately captured national attention, and over time it overshadowed nearly everything she had accomplished as an actress. Her ashes were returned to her family and buried at Oak Hill Cemetery in Glendale, Ohio, thousands of miles from Hollywood. Unlike the famous landmark forever linked to her name, her resting place remains quiet and largely unknown to the public. That contrast defines Peg Entwistle's legacy. One brief, heartbreaking moment turned her into a Hollywood legend, but it also eclipsed the ambitious young actress who dreamed of a successful career. Today, countless visitors photograph the Hollywood sign every year, while only a few know where Peg Entwistle herself finally came to rest. Number 9. William Desmond Taylor. William Desmond Taylor wasn't just another Hollywood director. By the early 1920s, he was one of the industry's most respected filmmakers, directing major stars and helping shape the silent film era. But today, his name is remembered less for his work than for one of Hollywood's oldest unsolved murder cases. On the morning of February 2, 1922, Taylor was found dead inside his Los Angeles home with a gunshot wound to his back. He was 49 years old. What followed was a sensational investigation involving famous actors, hidden relationships, missing evidence, and countless rumors. Despite years of inquiries, no one was ever convicted, and the case officially remains unsolved. As the mystery grew, Taylor's remarkable career slowly disappeared behind the headlines. Instead of being remembered for the films he directed, he became known as the victim of a scandal that exposed the darker side of early Hollywood. Even more than a century later, books and documentaries continue to focus on the murder rather than the filmmaker himself. William Desmond Taylor was laid to rest at Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, California. Although he rests among many legendary figures of early cinema, his grave receives far less attention than the mystery that continues to surround his death. That may be the greatest irony of his legacy. The man who helped build Hollywood became overshadowed by the very scandal that shook it. While the question of who killed William Desmond Taylor still fascinates historians, the director he was before that tragic day has gradually faded from public memory. Number 10. Thelma Todd. Thelma Todd had everything Hollywood wanted. She was beautiful, funny, and one of the most popular comedy actresses of the 1930s, appearing alongside legends like the Marx Brothers and Laurel and Hardy. But today, her name is remembered less for her films than for the mystery surrounding her sudden death. Todd's career flourished during the early sound era, earning her a reputation as one of Hollywood's brightest young stars. Away from the cameras, she also operated the fashionable Thelma, Todd's Sidewalk Cafe on the Pacific Coast Highway, a popular gathering place for celebrities. It seemed she had successfully built both a thriving career and a promising future. Everything changed on December 16, 1935. The 29-year-old actress was found dead inside her parked car in the garage above her cafe. The official cause of death was carbon monoxide poisoning, and authorities ruled it an accidental death. However, the unusual circumstances immediately fueled speculation. Over the decades, theories ranging from suicide to murder have continued to circulate, even though no conclusive evidence has ever overturned the official findings. Thelma Todd was laid to rest at Bellevue Cemetery in Lawrence, Massachusetts, her hometown. Far from the glamour of Hollywood, her grave remains a quiet place that receives little public attention compared with the mystery that still surrounds her final hours. That contrast has defined her legacy. One of Hollywood's most successful comedy stars is now remembered mainly for a question that may never be answered. While the debate over how Thelma Todd died continues, the joyful performances that once made audiences laugh have slowly faded into the background. Number 11. Barbara Payton. Barbara Payton seemed destined for Hollywood stardom. With her striking beauty and undeniable screen presence, she quickly landed leading roles in the early 1950s and was promoted as one of the industry's brightest new actresses. But within just a few years, her promising career unraveled so completely that her downfall became more famous than her films. Payton appeared in movies such as Bride of the Gorilla and Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, earning attention as a rising star. Everything changed after a highly publicized love triangle involving actors Franchot Tone and Tom Neal. The scandal dominated newspaper headlines, damaging her reputation at a time when Hollywood studios closely guarded their stars' public images. As major roles disappeared, her personal struggles grew worse. Alcohol addiction, unstable relationships, and financial hardship gradually pushed her further from the industry. By the end of the decade, the actress once considered a future leading lady was living in poverty, and her Hollywood career had effectively come to an end. Barbara Payton died on May 8, 1967, at the age of 39 after suffering heart and liver failure related to years of alcohol abuse. She was laid to rest at Cypress View Mausoleum and Crematory in San Diego, California. Today, her resting place remains quiet, while the scandal that destroyed her career is remembered far more often than the performances that first made her famous. Barbara Payton's story is a reminder that in Hollywood, public disgrace can sometimes outlive talent itself, leaving a once promising star to be remembered for her downfall rather than the career she might have had. Number 12. Gail Russell. Gail Russell possessed a rare beauty that made her one of Paramount Pictures' brightest young stars during the 1940s. Audiences admired her gentle, graceful presence in films like The Uninvited, but behind the camera she struggled with intense stage fright that would quietly shape the rest of her life. Russell's natural talent quickly earned her leading roles, yet every day on set became a battle against overwhelming anxiety. To calm her nerves before filming, she began relying on alcohol. What started as a way to cope gradually turned into a dependency that affected both her health and her career. As the years passed, major roles became less frequent, and the actress who once seemed destined for lasting stardom slowly disappeared from Hollywood's spotlight. By the late 1950s, her personal struggles had largely overshadowed her achievements. On August 26, 1961, Gail Russell died at the age of 36 from complications related to alcoholism. Her death marked the tragic end of a career that many believed had never reached its full potential. She was laid to rest at Valhalla Memorial Park Cemetery in North Hollywood, California. Although the cemetery is home to many figures from the entertainment industry, her grave receives relatively little attention compared with the fame she once enjoyed. Gail Russell's story is especially heartbreaking because her greatest obstacle was never a lack of talent. It was a private struggle that few audiences ever saw. Today, the woman whose quiet performances once captivated moviegoers rests in equally quiet surroundings, remembered by devoted film lovers but largely forgotten by the wider public. Number 13. James Baskett. James Baskett achieved something no black actor had ever accomplished before. In 1948, he received an honorary Academy Award for his unforgettable performance as Uncle Remus in Song of the South, becoming the first African-American man to win an Oscar. Yet despite making Hollywood history, his name gradually faded from public memory. Before his breakthrough, Baskett built a successful career in radio and film, earning respect for his warm voice and natural screen presence. His performance in Song of the South was widely praised, and the Academy recognized his exceptional talent at a time when opportunities for black actors were severely limited. It should have marked the beginning of an even greater career. Instead, his health rapidly declined. Only months after receiving his Oscar, James Baskett died of heart disease on July 9, 1948, at the age of 44. As the years passed, Song of the South became increasingly controversial because of its portrayal of race, and Disney eventually stopped releasing the film. As a result, many younger generations never saw the performance that earned Baskett his place in history. He was laid to rest at Crown Hill Cemetery in Indianapolis, Indiana, far from the Hollywood studios where he made history. His grave remains relatively modest and is rarely mentioned alongside the resting places of many other Academy Award winners. That contrast defines James Baskett's legacy. The first black man ever honored with an Oscar is remembered by far fewer people than the milestone he achieved. While Hollywood history still records his groundbreaking award, the remarkable actor behind that achievement has quietly faded from the spotlight. Number 14. Marie Prevost. Marie Prevost was one of Hollywood's brightest stars during the silent film era. Charming, energetic, and immensely popular, she appeared in dozens of successful comedies and seemed destined for a long career. But as Hollywood changed, the actress who once delighted audiences gradually disappeared from the spotlight, and the heartbreaking rumors surrounding her death nearly erased the story of her life. Prevost successfully made the transition from silent films to talking pictures, but leading roles became increasingly difficult to find. Personal struggles, financial problems, and alcoholism took a heavy toll, while changing audience tastes left many silent-era stars behind. By the mid-1930s, the woman who had once been a household name was living a far quieter life than anyone could have imagined. On January 21, 1937, Marie Prevost died of acute alcoholism and malnutrition at the age of 40. Soon afterward, sensational stories claimed that her pet dog had survived by feeding on her body before she was discovered. The tale spread around the world and became one of Hollywood's darkest legends. However, later investigations found that the injuries were minor and that the gruesome version of the story had been greatly exaggerated by the press. Marie Prevost was laid to rest at Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, California. Although she rests among many famous stars, her grave receives far less attention than the disturbing myth that has followed her for decades. That may be the saddest irony of all. Marie Prevost spent years making audiences laugh, yet many people remember only an exaggerated story about her death. In the end, the legend outlived the actress, while the talented woman behind the headlines slowly faded from Hollywood's memory. Number 15. Laird Cregar. Laird Cregar never became Hollywood's biggest star, but many believed he could have. With his commanding voice and unforgettable screen presence, he quickly became one of 20th Century Fox's finest character actors, delivering memorable performances in films such as The Lodger and Hangover Square. Tragically, the role he wanted most may have cost him his life. Although audiences admired him as a powerful villain, Cregar longed to play romantic leading roles. Determined to change his image, he began an extreme weight loss program while filming Hangover Square. The rapid physical transformation placed enormous strain on his body, even as he continued working through demanding productions. Shortly after completing the film, Laird Cregar suffered a massive heart attack. He died on December 9, 1944, at just 31 years old, ending a career that many believed was only beginning to reach its full potential. His final performance in Hangover Square was released after his death, becoming one of the strongest reminders of the talent Hollywood lost far too soon. Cregar was laid to rest at Forest Lawn Memorial Park in Glendale, California. While many visitors come to the cemetery to honor some of Hollywood's biggest legends, relatively few seek out the grave of the gifted actor whose future once seemed so bright. His story carries a quiet irony. Laird Cregar spent his final months trying to escape the image that had made him famous, hoping to build an even greater career. Instead, his life ended before audiences could see what he might have become. Today, his remarkable talent is remembered mainly by classic film enthusiasts, while one of Hollywood's greatest unrealized careers rests in near silence. If these stories reminded you that even Hollywood's brightest stars can slowly fade from public memory, we'd love to hear which one surprised you the most. Is there another forgotten, legend, or hidden celebrity grave you think deserves to be remembered? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more true stories exploring the lives, legacies, and final resting places of Hollywood's greatest stars. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.